Welcome back to the Smugglers Den. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes, and we are bringing you episode 15. I can't believe we made it this far. As always, I want to thank swdestiny.com for hosting the Smugglers Den, for providing prize support for the TTS tournaments and the seasons. Go check them out. All kinds of news and cool stuff over there. Also, go to brokenegggames.com for all your gaming aid needs. And, you know, before you check out, maybe you put TG Games in the discount code coupon spot to help out the show a little bit. And we just finished up the month for Patreon. And I want to say real quick, thank you to everyone who subscribed. $1 means a lot to me because, you know what? I make these videos anyway. I enjoy doing it. But just knowing that people are so kind and generous as to donate anything, it's so amazing. And thanks so much to everybody. And special thanks to John coming in at the Darth Vader tier. And we welcome Jason Flanzer this week. Welcome back, Jason. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing so well that you can even find the Smugglers Den on iTunes if that's where you want to listen to it as a podcast.
You're darn right you can. You know what you could really do? Let's say you love the show, but you're like, Tiny, I'm not going to give you $1 for doing something you already do, which, by the way, totally get. Go to iTunes and drop a nice review for the show. It makes it easier for people to find the show. Right now, all the reviews are for the old Smugglers Den. So if you look up the Smugglers Den and you look at the reviews, you're like, awesome Star Wars LCG podcast. So go fix that. Go drop us a review. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, it would be good. And, you know, obviously we have a lot of people listening to it, so we appreciate all of you guys who take the time out to listen to it. But enough thanking people.
Oh, yeah. So, Jason, this is a big week. We played in a tournament. Tons of news came out. So let's start as we usually do with how our week was and how our tournament was. So we had kind of a small turnout at Paper Hero Games last night. I don't know what happened. Only about 10 people. I know Udi was out on a hot date, so congrats there, Udi. Nice work. So, Jason, what did you bring to the event?
I brought Akbar and 2 hired guns to the tournament.
I believe you probably call that the Meat Sacks deck.
Meat Sacks deck. They call it Cash and Guns.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and it performed okay. I think of the 2 games that I went 2-2 once again, which is sad because I generally have performed much better. But, you know, experimental decks, you got to take your hits.
Yep.
And I had some really great games, and some of the games I just felt like I just couldn't win no matter what happened, so I really can't feel bad if I was playing something else. It's really hard to, you know, eat through a Vader Raider when, you know, they do 12 damage by turn 2. That's just, with no upgrades, I mean, that's just good. Just a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's solid.
So it's just it's a tough matchup when you end up having to deal with that, and you are doing your best to fight, but unfortunately they don't come up. But it's a fun deck. I personally don't like it very much because it doesn't really have. I don't need it to be the flashiest deck, but I want to have something, and it just kind of just trods along and does damage, and that's just kind of what it does. You know, you play Millennium Falcons and you can play Launch Bays or you can play Black Ones. But at the end of the day, I think that it's just kind of a deck that plods along. I do think it's good. I saw someone performing really admirably with it in a tournament setting, watching play mini games, and it didn't seem like the games were played through much error. So it's not like he was just winning against necessarily bad players, but it works. And even when it was working, it was working. Like I just kind of went along with what was going on. And
sure.
But unfortunately, I just don't. It's just not for me. Just not.
Does it play It's a Trap?
It does not.
Okay, I kind of figured that with the hired guns and Falcon.
I actually have no red guns in the deck.
Whoa, you might have built a bad deck.
No, I checked this guy's deck list too. Well, I saw him beating, like, he played against Jango 2 Troopers, he played against Kylo Dooku, played against Vader Raider in the tournament. And like I said, I didn't feel like they were making tons of players, and they had exposed hands, so like I kind of understood what they could have done.
Sure.
Very rarely was there a problem. It just kind of was working. He just kind of hitting things, I think, when he needed to hit them. And I'm not saying that makes the deck good or bad, but it's certainly bad when, like last night, for example, I rerolled 8 dice in all resources. I rerolled all my dice 4 times, and my end result ended up being 8 resources, never rolling a single damage on any of the dice in the entirety of the rerolls.
That sounds kind of amazing.
And, I mean, I already had a Millennium Falcon on the table.
Oh, that sounds less amazing.
It was like, okay, I guess I just take 8 resources.
Wow. And then your
So
opponent goes,
yeah,
abandon all hope? Huh?
that would be pretty good.
And then you
He did
cry.
not do that. I would have cried.
Yep. So it sounds like sort of a typical light side fair deck that plays good cards and rolls dice and hopes to do damage.
Yeah, exactly. It was a light side fair deck, which just isn't that great.
Yeah. And I think those are fine decks. They're just not really my speed either. I want to be doing something a little more interesting, a little more surprising, something that they can't stop as well. When you just roll damage, they have outs for that, right? And it's or you just don't roll the damage, either one.
Correct. Yeah, and I get like it's kind of overbearing when you play things like Millennium Falcons and things like that because that can carry you.
Yeah.
But it may work, it may not, but it wasn't working for me.
All right. So I decided to bring Django Double Trooper. And the reason is, and this is something we'll get to a little bit later, but we know the meta for Worlds now, and it's this meta. So I'm a little bit more interested in honing in on a deck or 2 decks and really figuring out the best builds for them. So I decided to bring Django Double Trooper because I think it's one of those top couple of decks. And what I started thinking about was, okay, what do most people say about Django, Jason? If you say, like, Django is amazing, what is the answer that some people will give you who want to say he's not amazing?
He only has 10 health, or he has mediocre dice.
Sure. Or the main thing I hear is he's easy to play around. You just pass. And eventually they have to roll him, and then you just...
Well, I don't even consider that to be a true statement, because it's just not.
I don't either, but I've heard a lot of people say that. So you know what I decided to do? I was like, okay, let's try something. Let's build a deck that is specifically geared for those people. So it's the regular Django Double Trooper deck. I put 2 logistics in it, which I was already doing anyway, just to get upgrades faster. And I decided I'm going to put 2 TIE fighters in it, so that if I get in a spot where they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to pass every time, I can just go, okay, let's pass back and forth. I'll start loading the board with TIE fighters and rolling them. And then I also put an endless ranks in there for the same reason, that if we just start passing back and forth, I am getting a huge benefit out of it. Unfortunately, not a single person I played in the tournament had any notion of passing. And so it was basically like 3 dead cards that were in the deck, ready for a different type of player, right, who wanted to take that approach. So that was unfortunate. But the deck played well. It's Django Double Trooper. It does what it does, right? Sometimes it rolls a ton of damage. Sometimes it rolls a medium damage. I only lost 1 game. It was to our resident Han Ray player. I was really happy with how I played it. I kept, near the end of the game, I was able to keep popping off his second chance and then grabbing the battlefield so he couldn't infinitely loop it. And so the last turn, I had the battlefield. He had no second chance on Han. He had 5 damage on him, 3 shields. I have Django with 3 upgrades and my Stormtrooper left, and 2 of the upgrades are redeployed, so I should be fine no matter what happens. And he rolls Han and rolls all like 3 plus 3 plus 3 or something. I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. He has no resources though. But I respond with Django, and if I roll 8 damage, I just straight up win. I have 2 backup muscles on the board, so I really only need 6, and then I can backup muscle him for the win as well. And I rolled 3, which isn't, awful, but you're hoping for more. And then he makes a good play. He goes infamous into smuggling to get $1 to be able to resolve damage and kill Django. So that was pretty cool. The stuff goes over Stormtrooper. Stormtrooper whiffs. He re-rolls into still like 7 damage and turns right around and kills the Stormtrooper. So with 4 dice, he was able to kill both Django and the Stormtrooper. It was a very frustrating moment where, it's like you've both played well. It gets to the end of the game, one of you rolls kind of meh, and the other person rolls out of their mind, and then you lose. And those endings more and more are frustrating me, Jason.
Yeah, but you did your best, and that's just what it comes up with. And that's one of the weaknesses of the Django deck is you kind of are stuck with what you roll. And its strength is that you get the jump on them.
Yep.
Weakness is you're kind of screwed by it. And the smuggling infamous play, that's a really good use of smuggling. So
yeah.
a card that most people avoid. I mean, I know I avoid it, but with Infamous, that is a really good point that you can really produce things out of nowhere to find things that you wouldn't normally be able to do.
Yeah, he also set it up well. I was impressed with this. So he rolls it out, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of damage. And he made the point of saying, yeah, it is, but I just don't have any resources, right? Knowing he has this play in his pocket, but really wanting to cement in my mind, Django is fine. It's like trying to do a mind trick, right? Django's fine. Nothing's going to happen. Don't worry. So I appreciated that. That was a nice little
nice little touch.
Yeah, it didn't affect anything because it wasn't like I could do anything about it. I was still screwed. But I did think that was kind of a neat little deal.
Good table talk.
Yeah, good table talk. So I went 3-1, tied for second, got third on tiebreakers, whatever. It's fine. But what I did realize coming away from this event, and we're segueing to a new topic now, is that I don't love the decks where I need to rely on rolls. I've just more and more started thinking I don't really want to take a deck like this to Worlds. I know it's powerful. I'm not saying I won't do well. I just don't like relying on rolls, whether that's Han, whether that's Django, whether that's Kylo Dooku. All of these decks are very powerful, but they rely on rolling good dice. And so more and more I've been thinking I desperately want to find a deck that is not as reliant on it. How about you, Jason? How are you feeling about the meta these days and decks that you're happy with?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that just rolling dice and praying is just not my style. It's just, I like the trick. I like the ability to find answers rather than have the crazy explosion. And sometimes I think you can do both. Yeah. Which is why I've always favored the Django Bala Trooper over the Django Trooper because you have a lot of tricks and you have a lot of ways to do damage that does not include you actually rolling the numbers on your dice. Mm-hmm. Things like Fight Dirty, Arm to the Teeth, that's the damage that is the difference. Like, you're like, I needed 6 damage, but I only got 3. And you're like, yep. Well, that could have easily been 6, or that could have easily been Arm to the Teeth, or that could have easily been, in a situation like that, what you could have done. So that's why I had a ton of fun playing with the Django Jabba deck, because Jabba's got tons of focus, you've got the all-in capacity. I mean, Jabba just really evens your deck out. Whereas, if you're not doing that, it's not as good. I completely agree. That's why as much as I did like my original light side deck, and actually it never really did poorly, and I've never really seen people try to play the 29 health version of the deck, or is it 29? 28 version, because it's only 3 dice instead of 4, like the Padawans with Rey or the Qui-Gon Rey. I really liked the fact that it just had a ton of health, and it could roll out, but the problem was playing it just bored me, because you're just like, I roll out, and I roll out.
Yeah.
At least with some of the cards we've seen spoiled, specifically the one that is a shield, the shield die that is a mini immobilized. That's at least going to give you a little bit more play to try to fix the answers, so you can kind of sit back and do what you need and then roll out in response. But other than that, it's still going to be a deck that just kind of dirtles, and dirtling just isn't for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking more and more that this week I'm going to try to find a deck that is not as reliant on dice, whether that's a Jabba Dooku Mill deck. I'm actually really interested in a Vader Jabba deck. And the thought is that if Vader's pulling a card out of their hand every time, and you have a Mobilize, which either gives you shields to offset their damage every turn, or even if you roll poorly, you just turn something to a blank, and they've already lost 1 card from Vader's ability, so now it's a second card they automatically have to lose. It feels like that deck doesn't have to roll as good, possibly, and I might be wrong on that, but that's kind of where my head is at right now. Same thing with Hyperloop, right? All you have to do is, if you roll crappy, you just activate the Falcon and loop and go to the next turn, and you don't have to worry about the fact that you rolled bad. And decks like that, I'm really leaning more and more. Basically, I don't mind just playing these decks. It's fine. But do I really want to fly to Worlds, pay $1,000 to get and stay at Worlds, pay more money to play in the event, and then just roll dice and hope? Not so much.
Yeah, that's why the red deck wins mentality is not for me either. It's just it's just too inconsistent, and I just can't stand that. I mean, this weekend was like the perfect example of just such inconsistency. And for me, like, or this week, I should say, or what we did yesterday with the cash and guns, it just being at the mercy of what you're rolling is just so frustrating.
Yep. Another deck that I kind of feel like I might just go back to is Vader Raider. It is an aggressive deck, but it's much less reliant on what you're rolling because you have no mercies and 4 strikes. It's like, I rolled garbage, but I'm still going to 4 strike you for 3, right? I'm still going to backup muscle you. And I might build it a little bit different. I'm thinking about building it in a way where maybe I play some cheap blue upgrades and play Power of the Force. Maybe I play a couple more yellow upgrades and put them on the Tusken Raider early and then be able to fight dirty for 4 to close out as the game gets a little later. Maybe Armed to the Teeth off of the Tusken Raider. Just stuff like that to get even more direct damage. I think that's where my head's at right now. If I'm going to play an aggro deck, I want it to work regardless of my rolls, or I want to just play a control deck.
Yeah, the key to Vader Raider is you're putting pressure on with Vader's active ability.
Yep.
And your dice come what may, and you're going to roll some damage.
Sure.
And they're going to have to deal with it or take it, and then you're going to be able to cheat some damage. And like I said, yesterday, I got absolutely obliterated by Vader Raider. First turn, Vader rolled, 3 damage and whatever, and then the Tusken Raider rolls 3 damage. And, you don't even need to have upgrades.
Yeah.
You just roll those 3 dice, and then, your opponent's sitting there just crying.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, if you're able to utilize the power of some very easy to use cards like Immobilize, which are either shielding you or removing die, I think that might be just a more secure way. Sure, it doesn't hit home as hard as some of those decks might at an optimal setting, but if it can at least take the games that you need, and it'll at least be consistent for you.
Yeah.
So
that
is the nice thing about Vader Raider.
Another interesting idea that I just had sort of on the fly was you could just build Kylo Dooku to be less dice dependent, right? You could build it with 2 no mercies. You could build it with 2 copies of 4 strike. Yeah, it doesn't do a ton of damage, but paying 1 for 2 direct damage basically off of a blank, it's still pretty good and surprising, right? It's not 3, so it's not as good, but is that maybe the way to go, is just to go for more surprise out of hand damage to mitigate dice? Maybe. Maybe,
yeah. The biggest problem with that is it has to be Dooku's dice, because otherwise it's 2 for 2 damage, right? So that is the biggest issue for me.
Yeah.
For
it does have to be Dooku's die. It also works really well with Kylo Saber or the regular Saber. It is 2 then, but it's basically like a 2 cost no mercy, which sometimes I no mercy for 3 damage. That happens. If I have a 1 showing and I just need 3 to kill him, it's still worth it. And I just don't think your opponents play around 4 strike as much with Kylo Dooku, since no one plays it in Kylo Dooku.
Yeah, and I think the thing too, and we've talked about this before, just talking about the value of a die, a card, and a resource, is that yes, you don't want to spend $1 to do 1 damage. Like we're talking about natural talent, but the reality is that sometimes that's the damage you need. Now we're saying that you can spend $1 for 2 damage. Now, while it's less versatile, natural talent is clearly a much better value, and something that is really great. And like I said, your opponent can't. Even if they could play around it, could you really, if you roll out Dooku, there's pretty much a 100% chance that you're going to be able to 4 strike something, unless you roll 2 melee damage sides and they block you. You're going to have a die in play that you can 4 strike. So it's very, very reliable. So that could be a good way of going about it. And the pressure, it builds fast. Especially if you play against a character like Akbar, very easy to take out, or Django, who's very easy to take out.
Yeah.
That the damage piles on fast.
Yep. I think that's the next incarnation of my Dooku Kylo deck. I really like Kylo Dooku as my deck stands. I've lost a very small amount of games with it. But it just doesn't feel like it has enough, right? It just feels like there's too many games where you just go, well, I'm just not rolling well here. I guess I lose. And I just don't like that feeling. I want to have more control over that. I'm really trying, Jason, to make a sick control deck that shouldn't exist, with double disarms and double confiscates and prize possession, and I'm sure it's not going to be viable. But that's going to be my starting point. I was playing that deck a while ago. The Jabba Dooku, it was a little slow. I'm moving to a Jabba Vader build with it, and gonna see what I can make happen. Because that deck doesn't care what it rolls.
Yeah, I mean it does because disarm requires damage.
What's up?
Disarm does require damage, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like if you roll a 2 damage and none of their guys have taken much damage, they're usually not that worried about it.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. The biggest problem with decks like that is they lose to Vader Raider every time because you disarm. Well, you can't disarm my actual arms, and they just did 6 damage to you.
Yeah,
that's just oh my gosh. So it's
Yeah, I'm gonna do something though. This week is gonna be me experimenting with decks that can roll bad and still win. That's really gonna be this week for me.
Like I said, that's why I really have enjoyed this Bala deck the Bala deck that I originally wanted to play. I'm now getting to play it because it finishes and it just ramps so hard. Like if you put an upgrade on Bala, the fact that you get 2 activations out in 1 turn by cheating, like you're telling me that I get to get 2 activations, have a single character, and I don't even have to do the damage on the dice sometimes. Like that's just nuts. Between backup muscle, fight dirty. When you play an On the Hunt on Balatik, if you roll out, you have to be like, he can do 3 damage right now. And is there anything you can really do? No, there isn't. Really, you can get rid of their dice. You got the best case scenario, mind trick them.
Yeah, I agree. It. I mean, I think it's a good deck. I think it's a little more vulnerable than Django Double Trooper, unfortunately, but it's still...
It's vulnerable to bad rolls, but you have better tricks that you can mitigate those bad rolls. And if you think about Fight Dirty coming up in your deck twice, and you're going to probably draw it like in 5 turns, at least once, if not twice, then that's almost like saying that like 2 of your turns you don't even have to roll well. And you do a ton of damage.
This is if Bala lives. Like the problem is Bala dies pretty quick a lot of the time, then you lost most of your yellow dice at that point.
I suppose, but the reality is you put everything on Django to make sure that they go for Django. If they go for Bala, they go for Bala. It's not a big deal. You have Django Fett, and they didn't do any damage to him.
Yeah. Yep.
He's 18 health Django Fett.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's where we're at. I got a question for you then. With this meta, are you looking forward to going to Worlds? Are you going to Worlds? Is that on your radar at all?
Worlds is a tough subject right now for me because my life has been a little bit of turmoil, but I really want to go, especially because I also do play Star Wars Armada. I'm getting back into it, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So it'll be a really fun week for me to go to. That being said, it is a busy month for me, and I want to make sure that I get all my ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Now, Worlds meta is... I do think it's settling. As you said, we did, after the announcement that we will talk about here shortly, they've confirmed that it is going to be just Awakenings. So we kind of know what we're looking at, and I've played a lot of Fantasy Flight games. I've played a lot of card games, and I had a very hard time thinking that we're going to be surprised by what wins this tournament. Whereas, like, you play, Netrunner, or you play, like, Thrones, and, like, someone's like, yeah, man, they just won the first Thrones tournament with Martell, Martell Tyrell. You're like, those are like the 2 worst houses.
Yeah.
And yet they end up making this masterful deck that completely counters the meta. That's just not possible in this card pool. So
totally
I think we kind of understand what we're looking at, and a surprise would be so welcome and so lovely. But I just don't think we'll see it.
I mean, I think the surprises come from 3 and 4 character decks. I think those are the only surprises left. I feel like the 2 character combos, we've got them all hammered out. Someone in the TTS tournament played Dooku, Kylo, Raider, which was surprising to me. I beat it, but it was a very close game. The second one, at least. The first one, not so much. But it seemed strong. I could see a 4 character deck with a lot of supports that can just roll their supports and ignore Django and make Django actually have to roll into removal being good. Maybe. Like, I could see a surprise. I don't think the versions we have right now are that good, but maybe there's something there.
Yeah, the 4 character deck, I mean, the standard template is 2 Troopers, Night Sister, Baltic, just add all the colors.
Yep.
And, I mean, it's a scary deck. Like, it can do anything. And I spoke about it last week, and obviously he got God hands, but I played a guy who played like 10 cards turn one. Like that's just insane, and it's the color range.
Yeah.
Because you're playing, the ability to draw cards off exhausted characters. You're playing able to draw up to your maximum hand size with Balance and Ambition. You're able to, use the yellow cards for mitigation, things like He Doesn't Like You. I mean, you have the suite of cards at your disposal. And while some of them require spots or colors, most of them don't. So, and the things that those decks are very, very weak to is really not super common. Thermal Detonator is not a super common card.
No.
That card totally craps on that deck.
Oh, yeah. That card destroys those decks.
So it's very interesting to see that. I think that some of their weaknesses are probably not there, especially if they're playing endless ranks. I mean, you're probably looking at a ton of damage you have to eat through.
Yeah, those are the kind of decks I haven't experimented with much either, because Bala has been pretty prevalent in our meta, especially after the video that I made. He seems to be dying down a little bit now. So now I think you could do some, but I do feel like Bala is a really awesome counter to those, and I think we're gonna see Django Bala Trooper at Worlds, and that makes me think those 4-color decks won't have that much success at Worlds. The 4 character decks, not 4 colors. Yeah. So
whoever's the first one to kind of pull that deck together is really great.
That'll be fun. I do have a follow-up question though. What do you think about the prizes? So, not shockingly, FFG is not offering a big cash prize or anything like that. It's sort of standard, typical FFG for anyone who's been a part of the game. You're going to get some cool promos, probably a unique deck box, maybe a unique playmat, and then some irrelevant gift that we all laugh at later, whether it be a tote bag that falls apart in the first week of having it, or some hammer that doesn't give you anything. Like, bottom line is, you spent $700 on your Destiny collection. You spent $1,000 to get there and stay there. You spend another $70 for the event, and you get some stuff. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Well, those of you who know Fantasy Flight know that OP isn't their strongest suit. Now, to be fair, they actually have done a pretty good job of making sure that people get something. So, for example, at the World Tournaments, people have got some really cool cards of very high value. The biggest problem here is that we're playing Star Wars Destiny. It's a CCG.
Yep. So
it requires dice, and it also, the card isn't that special because it's not a replacement in the sense that the card, actually replaces it, because the dice is generally the main, the main component. It's not like having a cool lightsaber upgrade. Like, it's going to be covered by other upgrades. Like, it's not it's not super relevant. It's not like a piece of ice in Netrunner, which is like a wall of defense that sits out on your table and looks gorgeous and sits there all game, or a program in Netrunner, or a character in Game of Thrones. So those, I just feel like, are going to have less and less value as time moves on, especially because people printing different kinds of cards are going to also decrease the value of those cards because people aren't going to care as much. So I do think they'll do a good job of making sure that if you go, you get a prize. But unfortunately, this isn't, third grade soccer league, and getting a prize isn't going to satisfy everybody.
Right.
We need, people, they crave that. They crave a lot. And the one thing that really bothers me about seeing this update is the one thing that Fantasy Flight has always done that's been cooler than what anyone else has done, other than Cash, and maybe even cooler than Cash, and that's the ability to help create a card for the game. They did not say that that was an option. And that was the one thing that I was always like, well, at least you get, if you're the world champion, you get to create a card. You get cards that are yours. That sounds awesome. You are a piece of history. You are a piece of the legacy of the game.
I'm pretty sure
that is something.
I'm pretty sure that's part of the deal still.
Okay, I didn't see it in that announcement, and I think someone else also said that too. So
I didn't read the announcement, but I'm pretty sure you get to, but maybe not.
I hope so, but like I said, I didn't see it in there, so I hope that's not the case. So hopefully that's the case. That is very cool. But once again, it's only for the first player. So if you're looking to justify that you could actually make this an affordable hobby for yourself and playing could cover your expenses, you need to think of this as as a giant, glass of beer, because you're going to drink it and it's going to be done.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fun.
Delicious. It's going to be a delicious time, but guess what? At the end of the night, you're probably just a little hurt because you had too much of it, and now your money's gone.
Yeah, I think you can't you can't think of it this way with FFG. There's not going to be professional Destiny players. There's just not. FFG doesn't do that. The way that will happen is if there's an outside group that steps up and makes their own money circuit. And I hope someone does. If the game gets big enough, I think someone will. A Star City Games kind of thing. Only that'll end up being the main thing. And the FFG quote world champion, people will be like, that's hilarious. That's right. They do that every year. And they give you a fancy tote bag for winning. That's hilarious. But for now, that's all we have. What shocked me, and doesn't shock me because there's no product, I kind of assumed the winner gets a box of the next expansion or something like that, right? So it's like, yeah, we're not going to give you a cash prize, but this is basically $100 cash prize. That's something, right? That's almost a cash prize, and that's been the problem with the LCGs is you can't do that. It's not worth anything. But this is like getting cash. I'm a little surprised that like the top 8 doesn't all get a box, top 4 gets 2, first place gets 4. Like that's a very obvious, reasonable, low investment for FFG to make. That's the place I'm surprised by.
Yeah, I mean, that is a classic thing that CCGs have done. They give out product. Heck, I once got top 4 in a PTQ, and I got 2 boxes of like Spanish and like Russian Magic cards.
Nice.
Like, and it was sweet. I loved it. Yeah, it was really fun. So something like that would be very cool. You know, I was like, oh, this is a really cool little thing we have, or special versions of cards, things like that. And they're just not, because those things aren't important here, and the rarity value of the cards aren't really there. It's just not conducive. And you're right, that would be so perfect. Or imagine if like the top 4 got play sets of Spirit of the Rebellion. Like how much that would be fun.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Or even just an uncut sheet of cards or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
It would be pretty sweet. So something like that would be awesome. Unfortunately, they didn't get that. They didn't get the memo. I'd just love to know what they're thinking. Like, what do they want? The one thing, I think we talked about this, and I guess we can kind of roll into the next release that we want to talk about, but I just want to know what, not what are they thinking, like, are they crazy, but like, what are they thinking? Like, what do they want?
Yeah.
Because
what's the plan?
If they want it to just be this casual deal, then that's okay. I just don't want us people to have the wrong idea. And I think a lot of people do, because they, especially when it went CCG, we thought, okay, it's a money grab, but it's going to get a little more serious, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a lot more intense, and that just isn't the case. If anything, it seems more casual than their LCGs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's FFG, so I've always said the way I view FFG is they're a board game company that wants you to buy their stuff, and then when you say, hey man, this is awesome stuff, I want to play tournaments and stuff, they go, why do you guys have to do this? Just buy our stuff and play it with your friends. Stop being so weird about this. So I'm not surprised, but I was kind of hoping that with the CCG, they would be more serious, right? And they might say, like, we have a real opportunity to be number 4 and move into number 3 or number 2. It doesn't seem like that's their goal, and that, I don't know, that kind of bothers me.
Yeah, very bothersome.
All right, well, let's talk about it then. They put out an article. So let's backtrack. Everyone's worried, right? I can't find Awakenings anywhere. What am I going to do? At the Toy Fair, there was a leak of information that there's going to be one more printing, and I think FFG felt pressure. Okay, we need to address this, right? There's this rumor swirling. People are freaking out. Here's what we'll do. We'll half-ass slap together in 5 minutes a press release just to make everyone feel better. And we'll just let them know, yeah, there's another printing coming. Oh, by the way, here's our plan, so you don't need to freak out in the future. And I get it.
That seems like a good idea.
I get that idea. But what did you think of this article? Did you come away thinking like, whoo, I feel much better. I know what's going on. I feel good about it.
I think it's pretty obvious that they just punted this so far down. Not only is the decisive actions that they're willing to take, in my opinion, ludicrous, but the way they said it, they just said it like it was they were doing us a favor.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre. I mean, we'll talk about it in depth, but this is just not how you calm the status quo. This is not what you do. Like, whoever wrote this press release needs to, like, have press release classes. Like, he needs to understand how to talk to people. Do you know what spinning the situation is?
Yeah. It's not even spinning. It's called framing information. There's rarely a situation in the world where information just comes out in a vacuum, right? There's an audience, there's a writer, information needs to be framed. And the way they treated this was just like, here's some raw data I'm going to give to you with no interpretation or further clarification. So you can just interpret it any way you want, and the way I framed it, it sounds kind of bad. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the content of what
Yeah. So basically the bottom line is they said there's more Awakenings coming. They've outlined a process, which is great, right? They do seem to have a plan now. There's going to be one base set that comes out each year. It'll be starters and packs. And then throughout the year, there'll be 2 more expansions. The downside, of course, I think that everyone's focusing on is that these expansions will be one print run. They will be released in waves, so it won't be like they all come out, the speculators buy thousands of boxes and no one has any product. They'll come out in waves, but then that's it. They are not printing anymore, and it's just going to be one printing. So what do you think of this, Jason? Let's talk about the pros and the cons. What are the pros, if we can think of any, of this approach?
The pros are they don't have to do any more work.
I think that is a real pro, actually. I think the pro is if they do a big print run, they're never going to fall behind, right? They can always stay on top of their game. They can do a big print run. That's done. The next expansion is coming. Guess what? It won't fall behind. We won't have some tiny print run because we've already moved on to the next one and we're ready for it. We have a plan. So I think from that perspective, there's a real positive there. By the way, FFG, hello, learn to frame information as this is a positive.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I mean, it's nice, it's easy, especially if they do it in a, like you said, an aggressive and larger scope, then it'll be easy for them to monitor, which will be nice. They won't feel like they've left out, and they can make educated decisions. My biggest problem then comes with the converse is that why would you ever make such a decisive statement? They did this as well with Netrunner when they were talking about the rotation, and they're like, even though it's many years from now, this is how it will be. Right. And you're just like, why would you ever need to say that until the plans can actually roll out? Because you're just shooting yourself in the foot by sticking to this. So you're telling me that if day one that you release it, every single box that you printed sells, you're not going to want to print a second run? That's what you're saying to me with a straight face? That's just absurd. That's just absurd. No one will ever be able to get product.
And on top of that, they're going to do another print run. If they print SOR and it sells out day one it's gone, they will print another one because it's so much money for them to print it. There's no way they won't. So to make a statement like that we will never print it again, is just dumb because they will if there's a problem. But the way people are interpreting it as, that's it. If they screw up with their projection, no one will be able to get this and the game will die. There's no way they're going to let that happen. That would be ridiculous. I
will tell you how this should go then. This is how they should do it then.
Yep.
If they're just going to do one print run, they need to tell every distributor in the entire world that they're only doing one run.
Yep.
And just ask them, how many boxes would you like? And then those people will write all their stores. And the stores will tell them how many they like. Yep. And then they will tell them how many they like. And if they were to print the number that they say, if you could just pre-order all that out, maybe it would be okay. But even then, it's just so unlikely that wouldn't sell. I mean, I'm a person who owns all of Awakenings for the most part, and I'd still buy more Awakenings. I'd love to get some Awakenings as prizes. So on and so forth.
I'd like to draft. I think that would be fun.
Sure. Like, I had Magic cards just like spilling out of my pockets when I played Magic. Not that I needed the cards, I just kept getting them.
Yeah.
That's just money in the bank. And a company like Wizards, people are like, oh, Hasbro owns Wizards, so they can print more. It's like, listen, first of all, Asmodee owns FFG. Second of all, this is selling out the day that it comes out. Let's not act like this is not an investment that they can't be making in their own company. Yeah. And third of all, a company like Wizards, they do only print for a very limited amount of time, but they would never sit there and say, we're only going to do this once. And if they have ever done that, it's been a giant mistake.
Yeah. The proper way to do this press release was something like this, right? So here's what our plan is, and there's no reason to even say it's only going to be one print run. But if you are going to say that, you say something like this. Our plan is to project how much we're going to need, do one print run so that we don't get behind, and this one print run will be printed at a rate which will allow the game to grow, implying we are making smart, aggressive predictions, right? Even if you don't do this precisely, at least you've let your community know we are looking to err on the side of growth rather than on the side of, guess what, it's Awakenings 2.0. Because that's how everyone interprets this, right? Oh, so it's going to be a product shortage.
Yep.
We're all screwed. The sky is falling.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, once again, why be so definitive? Tell us your aspirations. Tell us your goals. And that will allow you to make educated decisions. Why would you, test the waters? You can sit here and tell me that they didn't know if this game would be successful, which is why they didn't print as much Awakenings as they needed. Because, by the way, clearly they need more Awakenings because in the United States you can't buy it.
Can't buy it anywhere, by the way. I've been reaching out to global contacts. It's gone.
I understand that you did, you had to figure it out. But you figured it out. There's a clamoring for this game. So, I mean, they received death threats about this.
What?
It's insane.
What are you talking about?
I'm serious. I was told that they have received death threats, which is just, that's ridiculous. But, people are obviously they're going nuts. I'm not going to use Facebook as an indicator, but an hour and a half into a post, there are 248 comments that I saw. People clearly have quite a passion for this, and they want to see it grow. They do not want to be shot in the foot. We were talking with people who are already saying they're going to sell their collections. You should never want to do that. You should never have an environment in which that's the case. And you should tell people to be patient with you. Say, hey, guys, we want to do it right. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. Just be honest.
Yep, we're adjusting.
We'll understand.
We're willing to adjust to new situations. You don't make a black and white statement about the future you know nothing about. That's the most absurd thing I've seen in a while.
Star Wars Destiny's a new game. CCG's are new for the recent times of the company. They want to get it right. If you say something like that, then that's fine. We get that, and we'll be with you. And just keep printing, and we'll keep buying it.
Yep. So bottom line is, I wouldn't take this article too seriously. It really seems to me like something they dashed off to address the concern of will there be more Awakenings, and someone had this genius idea of, oh, let's just throw our plan on there too. That'll make people feel even better. And then it didn't.
Yeah.
I know some people that I'm very close with that are seriously talking about getting out of the game now because they feel like this has sort of revealed that FFG has no clue what they're doing. Even if they don't adhere to the one print run, just saying something so ludicrous makes them look so foolish that they're just not really interested. It's kind of like for me, I played Dice Masters and then WizKids was like, hey, good news. You can, with your X-Men, now play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dungeons & Dragons. They're going to come out every other day. You'll need to spend several $100s. It's going to be amazing. It was that day when I was like, oh, this is a fun game, but you guys are a bunch of morons. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just sad. And I told you this yesterday, too. I'd love to talk to someone in the Star Wars licensing division. Hey, there's this company that is selling your licensed product, and they want to sell less of it. Is that a problem with you? Or is that a problem for you? Yeah, you don't need more money. Literally, if you printed another, I don't know how big their print runs are, but I imagine it's it's thousands and thousands of boxes.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that they could move 5,000 to 10,000 boxes in a day with ease.
I think so.
At this point.
I think so too. Especially. Oh, so here's another thing I want to talk about. It says there's going to be one more limited print run for Awakenings. What does that mean to you? Because it's speculation because it's such a bad article that they don't actually address what the word limited means.
Yeah, they're not printing any Darth Vaders in this print run. That's why it's limited. It's ridiculous. What does that even mean? You're right. Why would you do a print run of the effective core set of your game, which they do go on to actually describe what a core set eventually is, which they edited the article to actually add because they said it a whole bunch and didn't actually tell people what that was.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know how you could leave out so many things. If it's sold out already, don't you think that people are going to want to buy it in December when Christmas time comes and people want to get into this game?
I don't think so. To me, though, the word limited means small. They're basically a synonym. I've seen a lot of people say, well, I think it's going to be the same size as all the other waves combined. I don't see that. I think what it is they're printing SOR now. They're going to take a little tiny window to print some more Awakenings and then just move on to set 3 so they don't get in trouble with set 3. I really think it's going to be very small.
Yeah, And I think that what they really need, this was a poor attempt at transparency, and what they need is a good attempt at transparency.
Yes. I seriously think if they changed or added 20 words to that article, it would be a great article.
It's insane.
So, there you go.
Insane.
FFG, I'm offering my services. I have done PR work for other gaming companies. I have a PhD in rhetoric, so come on over. Come on over. I'm offering.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move on to something that totally slipped by me until someone pointed out to me. There were actually more spoilers this week that nobody talked about. So we're going to, because they're pretty amazing. The first is this Maz card. It's not a hero. Sorry, it's not a character because it doesn't say Maz at the top. So it's maybe her goggles or
it's got to be an upgrade, right?
What was that?
It's got to be an upgrade. It's an upgrade because it has the box around the word, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's an upgrade. And the dice, Jason? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's sweet. I mean, for one resource, this is an upgrade, and it has a single focus, a double focus, and then a resource, and then a resource. There might be more.
I mean, I'm just gonna say it. This is the single best die I've seen yet for a slow, resourcey kind of deck, right? So it can both function as getting resources, and it can also function as, oh, I just rolled the double focus, and I also have a double focus on Akbar. I'm gonna all in and do 7 billion damage.
Yeah, I mean, the continuity of the yellow deck went up, and I'm not certain it's gonna be hero, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a stab in the dark and say it's hero only.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that.
I think it's gotta be her goggles.
It looks also like the fifth side has a black element to it, which means it's not a blank. I was actually looking at this card and going,
oh, good point.
That's probably a double blank, but it's definitely not a double blank.
And here's a question, other than specials, which, you know what, now, is that under the T, is that the special symbol eking out on the side? I'm serious. I'm very serious.
It's possible.
Because the only thing that's ever been under a resource, I think, is a special. Is that not true? I'm pretty sure that's pretty consistent.
I'm really bad at that kind of stuff, so I can't say.
I want to say that there's never been anything under a resource except for a special. And I'm pretty sure that that's a special right there under the T.
Unless that special is a negative special, this card
is a great card. This card's bonkers good.
So what's also cool is the sides don't match the Maz that was spoiled already, the die. So when I saw that die, I thought, okay, that's going to be a support or something. But maybe that means it's a character.
Yeah, and hopefully it has an ability that kind of synergizes with her. It'd be really cool to have a picture of her on her card as well, and just kind of have that going. And yeah, she's definitely seemed like someone who would have focus. I would be surprised if she doesn't have a single focus on her die too. That's kind of her thing, it seems like to me.
Yeah, what shocks me more than anything is that Maz has 2 cards in the second set.
Yeah, already.
I'm kind of surprised she has 1 card, to be honest. Like, she was such a small part of the movie. I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
You know what's funny? Like, and I guess at the end of the day, you assume we're going to see her again, right? Because the lightsaber was there. So I imagine there's a little bit of foreshadowing. Obviously, they kind of are, I'm sure they're guiding what characters do get made on the Star Wars universes. So I think that she might be a little more important than we're letting on. And I think that it is interesting. I can't imagine there being too many more, though. But I guess technically she's on Awakenings, too.
Yeah, I think what it is Lucas just has a serious thing for Maz. Like, his grandma raised him, and when he sees Maz, he sees his grandma, and so he has this deep affinity for her and considers her the most valuable character in the whole Force Awakens movie. That's my theory.
That's a deep theory. Let's talk about this zero-cost blue villain card.
It's got Kylo's face on it. So that tells me it's aggressive, and it will be some sort of direct damage for 0, which would be crazy good.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like it could be something that is that, but unfortunately, like you said, there's nothing telling us anything other than just having the picture of the face.
I got an idea. For a really cool kind of broken card. For 0, you may pay one of your health to damage another person. And you can choose 1, 2, or 3 health. Your choice.
That's broken.
Totally
That's
broken. Completely
just straight broken.
busted. That'd be crazy. All right. Let's move on to the last one. Planetary Uprising. For 2 costs, it's a red card. It is a support. It seems like it's saying something like the battlefield, deal 2 damage as they wish. Something like that. Which sounds kind of like a hunker down to me.
Yeah, the one thing that you didn't mention, I didn't think I heard you say, is it is a support.
Yeah.
So 2-cost supports, I mean, that's a rare breed that really sees play. But this one says deal 2 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says distributed.
Yeah.
So we think that it's going to kind of be a deal 2 damage distributed however they choose, and then whatever it's going to be is something with the battlefield. What if it's whenever your opponent takes the battlefield, right? Planetary Uprising. So if your opponent claims the battlefield, deal 2 damage to them, distribute it. So, like, it's punishing them for taking the battlefield because you're having an uprising against them.
I love that idea. I'm guessing it's going to say, if you control the battlefield, blah, blah, blah.
If you control the battlefield, okay, that makes sense as the distance of the word, because, like, if you were to write the words like opponent and control a little longer. So if you control the battlefield, and then what? So, yeah, it's, man.
Yeah, then exhaust this to deal 2 damage to your opponent's characters distributed as they wish.
That would be so good if you just needed the battlefield to have that. It's not unique either. So if you had 2 of them out, just doing 4 damage a turn.
I didn't realize that. Oh my god. Yeah, that would be really good. And I think it's hero. Planetary Uprising sounds very hero to me.
It's got Chewbacca on it and the general Wookiee as well.
I don't think that's a neutral card. I think that's a hero card. That card, to me, is exactly what heroes need, right? Villains have all these sneaky kind of busted cards, and the heroes are just like, hey, I'm gonna roll dice. Huh? They're pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
So they could really use a card like this.
I agree.
All right.
And then Jyn Ursa, what do you think she does?
I think she's 4 mill sides and a 6 damage side.
Damn, that's close.
Now we've already seen her spoiled. She has 2 damage sides, 2 mill sides. She seems solid. She's very expensive.
So this is clearly out of a magazine. It's also a picture taken on top of someone's laptop.
Yeah. Yep. But it's a magazine article. I think it was called Trading Card Game Magazine or something like that. I don't really know. But it looks interesting. I'm very excited for that Maz card. It's funny because there's all these cards. Every Spirit of Rebellion card I've been like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So more and more, you know what I'm thinking, Jason? That Spirit of Rebellion is just a lot more pushed. With Awakening, it was kind of, let's see how the game works. Let's see how everything functions. And then with Set 2, you go, okay, we can push these envelopes. These we can't. I kind of view it like a lot of their other games that they make, where there's a couple totally busted cards that come out of the first set. Holocron. But a lot of the other cards are underpowered as they were sort of getting their feet wet and figuring out how this whole thing operates.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we're going to have a very, very large supply of Spirit of Rebellion to be able to get these cards from.
I think they're going to overprint it, to be honest. Everyone's worried about that. I think there's going to be so much Spirit of Rebellion, you will literally get as much as... You want 100 boxes? Here's 100 boxes. Enjoy.
I just disagree, but we'll see. But you know what? One thing that I must say, and this is true in the printing world, so something to consider, like, it's true that if you print more at one time, it does become more affordable. Mm-hmm. So doing multiple print runs, it does behoove you to do more at once. So maybe you're right. Maybe they just shoot pie in the sky and say, we're going to make what we believe to be 2 years of product. You never know.
I don't know if they'll go that high, but I just think they know that this is their moment to strike. Like, this is the set where they're going to make their money. If they do just an enormous print run and sell them all, this will be the most money they make off this game, unless the game does go to the next level. Because usually what happens is the game reaches a fever pitch. People can't get anything. They will sell their children for product. They'll buy anything that you put out. And then they go, oh, you know what, Jason? Turns out I've never played a CCG. This really isn't for me after all. I just really wanted to get in on the action of getting all these cards, and then I actually played the game, didn't like it. Now I'm out.
Yeah.
All right, the final thing I want to talk to you today is something kind of weird, and that's practicing for tournaments in suboptimal conditions. And let me tell you what I think about this, Jason. So what I mean by this is, for instance, I played in the tabletop simulator tournament this past week. We had a really hard time getting a time together. The person was available, at about 10 a.m. I had been up all night with the kids, just got the kids off to school. My brain is half asleep. I don't get a chance to play a warm-up match to really get going, which is what I like to do. We just have to jump in. And part of me is thinking, dude, this is a tournament you actually want to win. You've invested months in this thing. What are you doing? And the other half of me is saying, you know what? This is really good training, because there are a lot of tournaments where by the end of the day, this is actually how you feel. So training when you're half asleep and dead is actually not a bad idea. What do you think, Jason? Have you ever purposely tried to train like this to get ready?
You know what I've done before, and it's really funny. When I used to play War Machine a lot, I would go to conventions, and there were specific ones where it would be incredibly hot in the room.
Yeah.
And it was wintertime, and it was so hot. It was literally like, if you were wearing a t-shirt and shorts, you were still like nearly sweating. So I played actually a bunch of practice games wearing like a coat and all this stuff inside, just because I was like, I'm going to be so hot. I just want to make sure that like I'm used to playing hot.
Yep.
And I did that, and I felt really comfortable. So it was really good practice. I feel like I did well because of that. And I also like packed like a separate clothes, and I changed into them because I wanted to make sure I wasn't dying wearing the jeans and long sleeve shirt like everyone else was at the hall. Yeah,
that's a very smart idea, and that's what I'm talking about. Another one is John and I, after the tournament this past weekend, we sat down and we started playing a practice game, just fun, right? And someone was watching our game. He's like, "Hey, do you mind if I watch?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And then someone comes up to him and is like, "Hey, do you not know how to play Destiny?" He's like, No, I don't." He's like, "Oh, do you want me to teach you?" He's like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so I'm excited, right? Here's a guy I know, and someone's going to teach him how to play Destiny. And the guy taught him in what is a great teaching way. He was really animated and excited and loud. And that's great for the guy across from him learning how to play. For John and I, it was awful. It's like someone screaming in your face while you're trying to play a game of Destiny. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, we were already here. Why didn't you just set up over there? But I was really annoyed during the game, and I could barely think, and I could barely concentrate. And after the game, I was thinking, that's actually really good practice, right? I've been in shops where they'll do something like have a TV blaring in the background because they think that that's what you want, right? Like, hey, we're entertaining you during your match. And you're like, well, actually, that's really annoying, and I'm never coming back here. But you're a little bit more used to that, and you're a little bit more ready for that.
Yeah, I think that making sure you're matching the conditions of where you'll be playing is important, especially if you're looking forward to a long tournament. Something like Worlds is going to be very taxing mentally, physically. So understanding what you're doing, and conversely, putting yourself in the state that you are. So let's say you haven't done this very much, but you're in Minnesota in the wintertime. Now, granted, Star Wars Worlds is in May, so probably pretty nice, but I know that Fantasy Flight World for the longest time has been in Minnesota in the wintertime, and it's freezing.
It really is.
And so if you're late to the tournament, you're going to be very flustered because your temperature changing and all this stuff. And so being there, making sure you have time to prep, like you said, playing a practice game, rolling some dice, getting yourself situated, getting all of your stuff together so it's very easy to access, very important.
Yeah. Before we leave this, I do want to revisit a tournament etiquette. Don't talk to people during their games. I don't understand if it's a SoCal thing or what, but I've become more rude about it as time has passed. For the very first tournament in SoCal for Destiny, people did this, and I was very generous with them and politely asked them, hey, could you wait till after the game? But at this last tournament, some of the better players were watching me play somebody on Saturday. We were both undefeated. Whoever won this was going to be the one side for the cut, and the other person was going to be second. So it was no big deal, really. But several times, the same person came over and started talking, and I had to say, excuse me, we're in the middle of a game here. You see this, right? And by the third time, I was like, dude, go away. And I was quite rude with the person, but I feel like, what do I have to do to get you to understand that when someone is in the middle of a game, you shut the heck up? I don't understand this.
Yeah, and I think this is also should be said as a tournament organizer. I think it's important to make sure you set standards and people understand not to do things like that. You don't want to bother people after you play your, like, I really like when people are like, after you play your game, quietly exit the area. Yeah. Like, I like it when there's a playing area and then you're supposed to leave it. Like, I really appreciate that.
Me too.
So it's like a testing center.
Right. I mean, in addition to everything else, it's scouting also, which is annoying, right? Like, I don't really like when people watch my games while the tournament is in progress if I'm still going to play them. If they're at the lower tables, it's fine. But right before you go in the cut, having someone who is almost surely going to play you in the cut, watching your deck the whole time, you know, what's in your deck, how you operate it, I don't really like that. But once you start talking to them, you have really, really crossed the line.
Yes, I completely agree.
And I got to say, I forgot, Jason. I played 2 tournaments. I played a tournament on Saturday. I played Jabaduku, played against a Jabaduku in the last round. We were both 3-0, lost that one. We go to the cut. Take a guess at how the cut went. It was a standard FG cut.
You guys played 1 round and then everyone quit?
No, we played no rounds because it's ridiculous. We just played.
Wow.
Yeah. No one wants to play the cut. It's like, so the whole tournament was done in under 3 hours, and it would have been another like 3 to 4 hours just for 2 rounds of the cut. This is just, I don't know what they're thinking with this.
I agree.
Yeah, the guy at the shop was surprised. He's like, I don't understand. What do you mean? What do you mean split? We're like, we're just gonna take all the prizes, split them 4 ways, and not do the cut. And he's like, okay, I guess you could do that. It's kind of weird though. I'm like, yeah, I know. The game's dumb. Not the game. Sorry. The premise, the way the cut works.
Yeah, I really like to see the double elimination in practice. I think people would really enjoy it.
Yeah, I would like to run a tournament. I think maybe we'll do that in a month or something. Run one at Paper Hero Games, like a World's Tune-Up, and we'll do a double elimination and see how it works out.
That'd be nice. I'd really like that. I feel like in this side of the town we haven't really had a good tournament, and so maybe try to get a lot of people to come and explain it and maybe do some promotion here as well. Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Well, that's going to wrap it up this week. Thanks so much for coming on and staying tuned for the Smugglers Den. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at my YouTube channel, Tiny Grimes. You can find me at Patreon, Tiny Grimes. Find me all over the place. Where can they find you, Jason?
Just sitting here with you, Tiny, on the Smugglers Den.
You know what? He's being serious. He's basically my prisoner, and I just trot him out once a week. So if someone is in LA, save Jason. See you next week.
All right. Say bye.
It got a little dark and weird there.